This video is going to show you a solo flawless prophecy dungeon during the season of the Haunted. For those who just want to see this and skip the timestamp, so for that I can show you the setup I used and the build, etc. So, the prophecy videos I've done sort of last season and before, people are confused on where it is on the map. So I'll just, I'm sort of tired of reading that. So it's on Legends. It's here. So it still exists. It's still in the game. And it will come up as a Pinnacle drop. I'm not sure if it's going to be this reset coming or the reset after. I can't mind what the in-game message said last week, whether it was Grasp as the Pinnacle or Prophecy. But this video is going to serve the purpose for that. So getting your Pinnacle drop this season from Prophecy, solo-wise, and the solo flawless on it. But anyways, that's where it is. The rewards that you'll get, there's an emblem here called Prophetic Visionary. This is the solo flawless exclusive emblem. You'll also get an exotic Sparrow, if you don't know, and the exotic Ghost. I'm sure many people know these, but there might be some that don't, so I'm just showing the loot, right? As for the setup itself, we're using a Solar 3.0 subclass for this because Solar 3.0 is the new updated class. Just like last season when I done Void 3.0 for the dungeons, I'm going to do Solar 3.0 for the dungeons this season because I've already done the Void. So if you want to do Void, then do Void. But just know that I'm making a video on it, so I've got to do something that's new. So we're using Well of Radiance, Empower and Rift, Celestial Fire, Fusion Grades, Icarus Dash, Touch of Flame. Fragments are Ember of Wonder for free, plus 10 resilience. Ember of Torches for Radiant. Ember of Solace to double up on Radiant and Restoration effects. And Ember of Ashes for more Scorch stacks to targets. Pairing that with the exotic chestplate Starfire protocol, which gives us an extra fusion grade, and it's a fusion grade building itself, and you'll see that in the run. I'm sure you know. If you don't, I'll be discussing more about it in the setup, in the run. Sorry. As for weapons, using an exotic grain launcher with a horde, a good primary. I'm using funnel web, and we'll be going to be starting out with Fallen Guillotine. So a good sword with relentless strikes, whirlwind blade will be your best choice, legendary wise. Don't go for Vorpal swords. Don't go for Endguard or Frenzy swords. Stick with your good old Whirlwind Blades. Pick out your best Whirlwind Blade sword. Preferably avoid X-Frame 1, they do more damage than the rest of them in general. So that's what we use for the first boss, and then we switch off to a linear fusion. Then that's another conversation, I guess, on what linear fusion you want to use. It doesn't matter. It'll work with Freddy Needle. It'll work with Tarantula. It'll work with Corsair's Wrath. It will work with this fusion. That fusion. I can keep going on and on. It can go with bait and switch Cataclysmic. The answer is use what you're comfortable with. I want to use Storm Chaser because it's brand new. I'm not going to use Cataclysmic. I'm going to use Storm Chaser, as I said, because it's brand new. So that's what I'm using. Put Taken Spec in your weapons. If you don't have access to Taken Spec, then put Major Spec in on your primary and Boss Spec on your heavy. If you don't want to run a primary, which I have done it like that, you can run double special. So a good fusion rifle will do you well. So fusion rifle with a horde, it'll do really well. You get plenty of ammo. In this particular run, though, I just wanted to use a primary, okay? As for the armor mods, so we'll be matching our armor finder mods, or should do, to what we're using. So obviously I started out with a sword, right? We've got a solar mod on Charged Up, another solar mod on Charged Up, which gives us 2 additional stacks of Charge of Light, 1 stack each. Grey Launcher Reloader. For the chestplate, we're using Arc Resist and Solar and Void, because it's a trifecta. But not only that, we'll also be using this mod here called Strike and Light. We need Arc mod on to help us to get the additional secondary mod, which states gain damage resistance against combatants while sprinting. Now you're going to say to me, well, you can get it on another Arc. You can pair another Arc mod with this. You can't. It's bugging. I can't. I'm trying it. Invigoration is not stacking the second perk for this. And it happens all the time, which is why I prefer just to put an Arc mod on with the Arc mod itself, right? And it generally gives me the secondary perk. So just for people who are going to complain about that, that's what I'm doing with it. But I am going to switch off between Strike and Light and High Energy Fire. I'm going to go between the two. Boots, scavenger mods, as opposed to what weapons I'm using, and preferably match it to your heavy. Elemental Ordnance, which gives us elemental wells via solar grenades, which we pair that with Elemental Charge, which gives us Charge with Light by picking up an Elemental Well, thus giving us High Energy Fire or Strike and Light. We are also using the seasonal mods Classy Restoration, so this gives us unlimited health regen, health recovery kind of thing for like 10-11 seconds. Utility Kickstart, you don't really need it. I just had that on to fill in the gaps. As for stats, I recommend high stats for Resilience, Recovery, and Discipline. Get these 3 as high as you can. But that's the setup I was using for this. So as we start with the run, we'll be introduced to the opening encounter, which is just basically teaching you the basics of the dungeon with the mechanic of the light and dark. We're going to start with dark, just because it's easy to get dark right off the bat. I know that you can cheese this bit, so if you just want to skip to the first boss, you can. That's what this timestamp's there for. I'm not going to do the cheese where you go up top. I used to do that all the time. I just sort of tired of doing that, so I'm just going to do this little section as it's intended, right? But I'm not too fussed if you're the person that does that, where you just skip to the first boss. You know, I'm not fussed either way. I'm just letting you know that I'm kind of tired of doing that, so I'm not gonna. So now we're doing light. So this is where I'm using Witherhoard. This is why Witherhoard is the best weapon and most used weapon in this dungeon. You can look it up. You can actually look up meta stats for each dungeon. And for this dungeon, Witherhoard is overwhelmingly the best weapon. Why is that? Well, because it puts out decent damage over time. It also allows you to kill a target from anywhere where you need to be. So, for example, this section's a little awkward, if you like, where I need to get dark mods, because this arena, this room, is mainly light. Well, I can stick them with Witherhoard, run to the dark area, they die, it counts as a dark mods. So that outright, straight away, that's strong points for Witherhoard. So that's why, you know, it gets a lot of use. And not only that, it's good for assisting damage with heavy weapons. Right now, legendary heavy weapons are in a good spot. For the most part, you're better off running a legendary weapon as opposed to like Sleeper Simulant. There's some exceptions like Lament, but for the most part, and Galahorn, for the most part, you're better off running a well-rolled sword, linear fusion, rocket, depending on what you're doing, and then pairing that with like Izanagi's Burden or Witherhoard. Witherhoard is a go-to for solo play, which is why I use it all the time. For team play, not as much. If you are running it in a team, then you are the only one guy running it because it doesn't stack. So that's fine, right? If you want to be the Witherhoard guy for your team, then you can, right? But it's more of a solo weapon because obviously you're on your own, so it doesn't matter that it doesn't stack because you're the only player. So we'll put a banner in. I recommend that because then we can start off with a well. Again, you don't need to. I'm just going to pop it anyways because I'm going to get my well back for when I need it. So the knights on the first phase always spawn where you can see them. Right, that's why I pop a well where I did. It ensures to get, basically it ensures that I kill out all the 2 waves of scions, because you get 2 waves of scions per phase. And then I can get my moats as well. What I'm going to do is an advanced technique, and I don't expect everyone to get that. Basically, just to explain what that's doing, I actually get bumped by the boss. This is why Icarus Dash, by the way. People are saying use heat rises, for Warlock builds don't. You don't need really heat rises too much. Icarus Dash can save you on this fight. So at the very least, run Icarus Dash. My sword would have as well. But as I was saying, with this fight itself, obviously it's in a small arena, so a lot of people have a lot of issues with it. But Classy Restoration is going to help you out here. Obviously, if you're having real struggles, then Devour could be still better than the Solar. But you can see that I can tank out a lot of damage. Not only that, I'm running a tier 9 resilience. So I recommend that you put as much resilience. If you're really struggling in this dungeon, max resilience. Get all the resistance stuff stacking together. Obviously, I've got Strike and Light on at this minute in time. Now I know that it's no benefit to me to have an additional stacks, but it's going to make more sense because it means that when I get to the boss fight, I can switch to high energy fire when I want. There's a little trick that you can do. It's not a cheese, not an exploit. It's just a little trick between switching between charge of light mods. So we're going to tank some damage. I always save my empowering ray for when I want to tank some damage on the knights. Right? We're on our final stack, by the way. So this is where you need to analyze the boss. The boss needs to be close to you. Look at where the boss is going. What is he doing? What is he doing? You don't want to dunk until that boss is in a good spot. Now he's coming over, so I'll get my dunk with a horde mid-air and a fusion grenade, and then well. You will tank the fusion grenade in your well because of how damage resistance works in wells now. They are far better than they've ever been, right? So you can actually, generally this would kill you, but it's not gonna. So I'm gonna rotate between Wither Horde, using my fusion grenades, and a bit of sword. It won't be all sword ammo, because I'm going to do a little bit of both, but doing it like this guarantees the solo one phase. Very easy. Whereas if you just use the sword, it's iffy, you might not get it. So try and take advantage of that additional fusion grenade energy that you're getting, because of Starfire protocol, obviously. That's the one phase explained anyways. If you're doing this on a Titan, the bubble has a weird interaction with swords, and you can't overcome immunity because the ads tether, the goblins tether the boss. Well, the Radiance bypasses the immunity. So if you're wondering about that, because I get a lot of questions about that, how are you damaging the boss even though he's tethered? It's because well bypasses his bubble doesn't, and in my opinion it probably should, but it doesn't. As far as I'm aware, unless something's changed, because things change in this game, but I highly doubt it, it's probably still the same. On a hunter, there'll be means and ways of doing it, right? I'll come to that when we come to it. So with the Wasteland area, it's pretty simple. You just need to take out these 3 blights. Notice I've changed to the exotic fusion rifle in the kinetic slot, Bastion. The only reason why I've done that is because it just makes the Wasteland section a little bit easier, but it's not difficult anyways. It's just something that I'm doing for a quality of life thing, just so I can walk up to a blight, one-shot it and run away. Like, there's some utility in that. I don't know why Bastion does so much damage to them, but it does. So we're just going to use that. So I recommend swapping off, because Wither Horde's not a blight killer, right? It doesn't do any damage to blights. It is the terrible weapon. It's good for the goblins and stuff, but on this setup, you're not going to need to clear any of the ads. The only ads I would recommend that you clear on this Wasteland section is the snipers, right? But even then, you don't have to, but because of the setup. So just to remind you about the protocol, how it works. When you get a fusion grade kill, you instantly get your rift back, right? That's an instant thing. When you are standing in a rift and do damage, you will get fusion grade energy back for the damage that you deal, right? The faster fire of the weapon, the more energy that you get, or the more like sort of damage that you use, or like damage over time. That's why Anarchy would work good with this. Wither Horde works good with this. Trace rifles works good with this. Not to say that those weapons are gonna be good in a solo perspective, but I'm just saying that's what synergizes with the build. Like, weapons that doing constant damage, it's going to give you that constant drift feed of fusion grade energy. But that's the gameplay loop. What you don't want to be doing though is sort of wasting everything, where you do a rift, you maybe run away, and you have no more nades. Then you're going to have to start waiting on your normal cooldown of your rift, which is linked to recovery, right? My recovery is what, a tier 8, I think. So the recharge rate on my rift isn't the best. It's good enough, but it isn't the best. But if you're smart enough with Starfire, it doesn't matter. Those stats become obsolete and the build takes over, as long as you fusion aid when you need to and rift when you need to and stand in it to get some more grade energy back, and you're thinking about your next rift. As long as you do that, then you can't really go wrong. Not only that, obviously you've got Classy Restoration, which will give you 10 seconds of immunity. It's not full immunity, obviously, but you will basically get your health bar will just keep regenerating over and over. Even if you take a little bit of damage, it'll sort of tick off and then tick back to full. Now we'll switch back off. We'll switch off Bastion to Wither Horde. We're using a linear fusion. I highly recommend linear, not a sword for this. A sword just isn't gonna be decent for this, in my opinion. And it's alright, but it's really not needed. The linear is really good for this. This is what I use the linear on. I use it on the 2 snipers. So if you're not familiar with how this works, I'll take you through it. I know most people are. It's simple enough. So obviously you've got the light and dark mechanic. Yes, we know this. You stand in the dark, right? You get dark modes and so on and so forth. However, the snipers spawning the knights spawning the snipers. So when you clear out both knights, presumably the right ones, you're going to get two snipers sniping you while you're trying to look where to dunk. Now you should know that obviously, but the room does look kind of similar, and sometimes you need to remind yourself on where you're dunking. If you get a wrong dunk, you basically are punished, and you have to do another room to make up for the room that you failed on. So make sure you're getting the correct dunks. That's the first and foremost thing. What I think is the best way of doing this is look up as you enter a room from the teleporter. Look up if you can catch those two snipers where they're spawned, because you can't always see them depending on the room. But if you can catch them out, at least maybe get one of them, you've just done one of your jobs. So that's done. Then the knights are going to be patrolling. You're going to have them spawning with the acolytes, which can make that a little bit more difficult, but the build means it's easier, because it's the snipers that you want to get down quick, right? I used to do it where you would take out the ads first, then the snipers, but I think, you know, you've got that 2-second leeway. Like right now, nothing's happening. Look, nothing's happening. The ads are spawning. I've got time to do some damage to these snipers, you know. And then if you start to get weak, as you just take them, pop a rift. You will then, you know, be saved, and then you're fine. So I believe we need to get dark. So knowing your knowledge about these rooms will help you out, because there is a, you know, if this is the first time that you're ever doing this dungeon, you will not get solo falls first go. That's not how this works, unless you know in advance, you know, and you've watched enough stuff on this dungeon, which there's a lot of out there, because this dungeon's becoming old now. It's an older dungeon. But if you've watched enough, then yeah, sure, you've got an advantage with that. So even though it does clearly show you where dark and light is, some of the rooms can look a little confusion, and there's a bug in this dungeon. It's still a bug now, the lighting glitch. If you get the lighting glitch where you can't tell where everything's dark or light, but everything just looks light, go into your menu for 5 seconds, come back out, it will fix the lighting glitch. Which, to be honest, you need to do it, because it's imperative that you know where you are standing, because you can dig yourself a deep hole with this, like with the boss fight in this room. Like if you're too slow, the acolytes will keep spawning up over and over and over, and that's where you can get your wipes, where you get a little frustrated because you maybe killed a knight in the wrong area, so you have to farm up another knight by killing the sniper above to spawn in the knight. By that time you get another spawn of acolytes, they spawn their eyes, then you've got a sniper at you, a knight doing his fire, a bunch of acolytes in their eyes. That's where you're going to get your wipes. Obviously if you are about to wipe and you notice you've got sniped quite a lot, get a rift down, or even use your well. You use your well, because you're going to get plenty of supers. Well, you won't get plenty of supers if you're doing it right away, like me, but if you're somebody that's a little bit slower, use your supers. Use your well, because you can actually farm super back up. So these rooms work where once you've done your dunk, all snipers will despawn, knights will despawn, but acolytes will be infinite. You can farm ammo off them, anything you want. Especially if you want to switch some mods out. So I've got ammo finders on, which by the way I forgot to swap. I can't believe I forgot to swap to. I should have had linear fusion ammo finder on. I still had double sword from the first encounter. I just forgot to swap over. But what you could do is put Ashy to Assets on. Gives you increased super, so you could have a well for every room if you wanted. The room would take longer, but you won't be making a video on it, so it doesn't matter. No one's going to see, only you. Only thing that you care about is that you get the emblem, because this video is aimed at somebody who hasn't got the emblem. If you've got the emblem, this video isn't for you, right? If you've got the emblem, you should be probably watching some speedruns on it, which this isn't. However, this is alright. 1 phase on the first boss, 2 phase on the second boss. That's fine. I'm happy with that. I'm happy enough with that. And if it's going to help people out doing it, then you know that's a good thing. So we're getting double sniped here. This is where you're going to really pay attention. We're going to do an Empowerment Rift here just in case, because the snipers can snipe you before they despawn. One thing to note though, when you've got the emote, not the emote, but the the moat to dunk, you can't use a rift. If you use a rift, you lose the moat. Therefore, you need to farm up another moat, which is 5 to get the bigger moat, right? So you would have to kill another 2 snipers, right, and then go that route. Because you can't just clear 1, because 1 knight drops 3 moats, and you need 5. A fusion grenade, don't hesitate to use them on knights. It won't one-shot them, but if you get them a weak a little bit, it does like 2/3 of the HP. On its own, the nade itself. Won't flat out kill one, but as I said, if it's weak enough, or if you wither horde then nade, that will kill a knight, like pretty fast. So yeah, that's the main thing with the cube room. Make sure you do map rotation when you need to. Once you get the moats that you need, you could do an empowering rift before you pick up the 5 moats. Then you've got unlimited immunity to then get a dunk. That's what I advise you probably should do for most players who aren't comfortable with this room. And you'll find that you won't die if you do that, because you've got 10 seconds of immunity. That's more than enough time to pick up the remaining moats and get a dunk. So now this is the farm room. This is how you'll know, because you're shooting the phalanxes, the mini bosses. Use a well, use the empowering rift, and that's pretty much done. It's easy. They die in like 2 nades and a wither horde. So that's the cube room explained and done. I hope that makes sense. People struggle with it. I think more why they struggle is because they do things too slow, and you've got to trust yourself a little bit and play more aggressive. It's not like you're speed running it. That's not what I'm saying. Like, that encounter is meant to be played fast, and you are rewarded by playing fast, right? So put on your good Adclay weapons. People want to use Trinity Girl, use it. I'm not saying that you shouldn't use it. A lot of times when I make these videos, obviously, you know, I'm going with quite a loadout that I think is the best one. But if you do want to put on like an exotic primary and stuff for the cube room and stuff like that, then go for it. Because as I said earlier, the exotic heavies are sort of getting less and less used, apart from if it's maybe Galahorn or, you know, like Lament. But outside of that, we're starting to use, if you've noticed, people in GMs are using Hothead, Threaded Needle, Storm Chaser, Cataclysmic. The heavy legendaries are coming up in power. There's a power creep on that. So the game's sort of saying, they're sort of saying, go ahead and use an exotic primary. It's okay. You can do that, because in your heavy slot, you've got enough power in there anyways. So use whatever you want, but it's more the build that's going to influence how you survive or not. Like I said, on a Warlock, if we're talking Warlock, Voidwalker, he's probably still the best way. Even though Voidwalker's had a nerf this season with Vortex Grenades, it's still the best class for this, I think. However, this class is very good as well. Like, they're both 10 out of 10s. But yeah, those two are the best. I wouldn't recommend Stasis, because Stasis has got ad clear, but he hasn't got DPS. The DPS isn't good, right? So I wouldn't recommend that. It's like, you're going to put on Shadebinder to control the ads. Why not just put an exotic primer on, like I just mentioned, Trinity Girl? That would just do the same job as what the Shadebinder would do. It would deal with the ads. So one weapon's doing what the subclass would do. So as I said, you want to, for the solo, you want to lean to like survivability and damage stuff. That's what you want to lean towards. So the route that I'm taking for Rainbow Road is the jumping section. Why do I do that? It's just my route that I take. Whatever route that you're comfortable with, take. Just know that if you're going to take this route, make sure obviously you don't mistime a jump, because that can ruin you flawless. Obviously Icarus Dash is going to help out with some extra jumps that you want to do, like if you want to make a longer jump to an extra platform. But I wouldn't recommend trying to like rush this bit, right? It's literally like a 3-minute section, 2 minutes. You know, you're not going to gain any time just because you've Sparrow flied, right? If you know how to do that, do that. But I have seen people where they've just, if they don't know what you're doing, you just wipe and then you've got to start all over again. It's like, you're not winning a trophy for that, right? The only trophy you're going to win is if you get like a world record, right? And I'm sure that you're somebody that's not going to be going for that, because there's no in-game rewards for it. You're just going to get put on a website, right? And that's it. Unless you're doing YouTube, obviously it matters if you're trying to make content on speedrun. That's different because you maybe trying to make a name for yourself or whatever, and that's fair enough. You need to research the little details, you know, and go for that. But if you're somebody who just plays the game and just wants the emblem, then you don't even need to think about any of that stuff. So that's that done anyways. We're on to the final boss. As I said, I forgot to change my ammo finder, so make sure that you do that. But it didn't impact my ammo, but it's not that ammo intensive, especially on phase 1. It's phase 2 where it can be sometimes a little bit where you're struggling for heavy and stuff. So the ammo finders actually do help, because you are going to use a bit of heavy. So this is a little trick here you can do. I'm going to take off some mods. So I'll put a banner down. I'll rally to it after I've just changed it. So I was trying to see how much linear was. It's +3. So I'll just take off my resistance mods a sec, get some more ammo. And then put our mods on that we had. So it's the Solar Void and Arc. So we've got a trifecta of stuff. The ideal resistance, however, is double solar resist, I believe, for this. However, Scions do Arc, so you can kind of get a little protection against that. There's no void in this room, but the Knights do. They used to wreck. I must be honest, since the resistance changed, because this is the first time I've run this dungeon since resistance changed, nothing's that as bad. Like, look at how much damage I'm tanking just before I popped that well, and I wasn't even getting anywhere near red. So if you cover your resilience stat properly, you know, tier 9, tier 8, then you're good enough. But as I said, put at least one solid resist on. I've just got one arc on so that I get the strike and light for earlier, but I am going to switch off strike and light. So I'm going to see strike and light adds damage resistance. It stacks with everything else, but I am going to take it off to put onto high energy fire. It works out really good because it means I don't need to farm my 4 stacks of charge of light, because when I just want to use high energy fire, I switch to it. Don't switch to it until you're done with a room. So this is room 1. This is the first room that you'll always get. Obviously check what auras that you need to, whether it be light or dark. On this first phase, on the very first room, pop your well. You're going to get 3 duplicate echoes, Kell echoes at you, shooting at you, and the Knights. It's a lot of damage. So I recommend just using a well on this first phase, because you will get it back just because of our intellect works now. Right? Use your rift. Use the combat loop I said about. You do a fusion grenade, you get a rift. Stand in your rift a little bit till you get the next fusion grenade, so that you're prepping for the next rift and the next rift over and over. Ideally, though, it is kind of nice to make sure that you have a rift for each ogre. I didn't right now, but this is where I stand for that. One with a hard shot and some shots from your primary actually clears out the ogres fast. So the Witherhoard does a lot of work for the ogres. Make sure that you do take them out. After the dunk, you must wait for that ogre, because if you don't, the ogre's going to just boop you all over the map while you try and get the next symbol. So make sure you're clearing out your ogres. Don't be skipping on ogres. The Scions are infinite, just like we said about earlier with the 8 acolytes for the cube room. The Scions are just going to keep spawning up. But we are ready for damage, so I'm not going to clear the rest. I don't need ammo. I'm good for Witherhoard. Like Witherhoard, you don't need much ammo for damage phase. I would recommend picking up any special looks. It's going to affect the next phase, because Witherhoard's mainly for your ag clearing stuff. And you do need a bit of Witherhoard, don't get me wrong, for damage, but it's not. It's like 5-6 shots you're using total. Right? It's not a lot. We've swapped to high energy fire. My gun is glowing. That's how you know that it's on. So we're going to get a 20% weapon damage bonus. That does stack with Radiant. Doesn't stack with Well though, but it does stack with Radiant. But the thing is, we're not going to use our Well right now. I'm not using it. So I'll lead with a Witherhoard shot. I'll do an Empower and Rift. I'll just make sure you don't get caught there in his second teleport. Then we're going to do some damage to these snipers, the 2. Then we'll just do a bit more damage to Kell Echo, and then we're going to go to this second plate. We'll take out the 2 snipers first, so notice I'm playing ahead of the boss, not behind him. You need to learn that you're playing ahead of the boss. So look, I'm well ahead of the game. I can spawn kill the snipers as they're coming in. Now, you're going to lose on damage, but you're going to gain so much damage on later plates. In this boss fight, there is 6 plates on this boss damage phase. There's 6 plates in total. You roughly get about a 1 minute 40-second damage phase, which is huge compared to other dungeon bosses, right? But you have so much. Now obviously there's the dark entropy debuff, which I'm on ×3 now, but the boss is gonna come close to me now anyway, so that dark entropy debuff's going down. Look, so I've done an Empowering Rift here. This is where our main damage is going to come in. I'll do well now. Now we need to really focus some linear damage now, which that's what I'm going to do. Try and get some fusion grenades and Wither Horde shots in. Be careful that he doesn't teleport you, so I couldn't stand in my well entirely. So the well placement isn't the best, just because of that. I'm having to step in and out a bit, but it's fine. It's okay. On the next phase, I'll show you a little bit of a better place of putting that well, but it doesn't matter too much, because the goal, if you do what I've done there, you'll get half damage or more, right? We're going to swap back off to Strike and Light, so that way we'll farm our stacks of orbs, like it'll just happen in combat, because we're using our grenade, not orbs but our solar wells, which then gives us Charge of Light, right? And then we won't need to farm it up after all adds are down, because you lose high energy fire when you kill adds. That's why it's a sort of a boss damage thing where you only use it for bosses. But this little trick that I'm showing you means that you can turn it on and off when you wish, and that's what I'm doing. And I'm getting extra resistance when I'm running around, which you do that quite a lot, so it's quite handy doing it like that. So we're on phase 2. Phase 2, you need to look at your ammo, so make sure that at least you've got a bit of Wither Horde going for you. Heavy doesn't matter too much right now. So now we've got this particular room. So there's different rooms. Now this room is actually by far the worst. So, you know, it's typical that we'll get the worst room. But if you do get this room, which used to be called Hell Room, it kind of still is. The Scion duplication, or the spawn rate, is actually way higher than the other rooms. And I experienced that on this run as well. So that's still a thing. It's probably always was meant to be that way. I don't know. So we're going to do an Empowering Rift here for the Ogre to melt him and get our health. Because what it was, I had a Scion wave spawning as an Ogre was spawning. That's a dangerous moment. So that's where you really want your rifts at that point. This room's actually way more dangerous than it looks right now. I'm just playing it in a certain fashion so that it's not too bad. If you get light in this room, it's awkward. So if you get free light, I'm sorry that that happened to you, because that's bad RNG. Dark is really good. There's more dark in this room than there's light, so this room is badly balanced overall. So not only are you getting more sounds, but it's awkward if you need light. But you can use linear, so you can. So if the nights are in dark, you need light. You can go over to the light area and use your linear. That's what it's handy for, because you can always farm up ammo later on. So I recommend doing that, because you want to get this room done and dusted. You don't want to mess around too much, because you can dig yourself a deep hole with this, where you'll clear the Scions. You'll want to melt the both knights, and as you're doing that, sounds are spawning on top of you. So it's kind of like you need to get on with it. Also, this is a technique I'm using. So I need light. I go over Wither Horde one of the knights, and I'm going to linear the other, right? And they both die at the same time. Beautiful. I get my mods. Scions are going to spawn in right now. They should be. Yeah, so you can see how quick and how fast they're spawning in, right? And I'm getting 2 fresh knights spawning on top of that. So really start to prioritize your solar grenade rift synergy. So look, I've got another rift charged if I need it. I just pop it anyways, because look at the damage I'm taking. So we'll pop it anyways and just take him out. We'll need to clear out the last Ogre, because we need to farm up ammo. You're more than likely going to need to. I was actually quite lucky. I got my ammo pretty fast. But this doesn't always work out like this due to my experiences with it. So it's just a case of just keep killing the sounds until you get the ammo that you need. You don't need max. You can see that the build itself's helping out. The fusion grades is doing additional damage. Wither Horde's doing a lot of damage and stuff like that. So you don't need like 20 shots, but I would say going in there with 12, 15 is ample enough, right? for what you need to do. Just in case something goes wrong and he ports you, you need to prepare for plan B. There's always got to be a plan B. If he ports you, you need to go more into your heavy and really spam it. So again, we'll explain how this damage works. So we'll spam our fusion grades. We'll do another rift because that'll give us more nades back. That's just our first damage plate. So that's plate number 1. Plate number 1 isn't high because we're going to deal with the snipers first. We'll do a Witherhoard shot behind my back though, so he's damaged by Witherhoard on plate 2. This is plate 2. We're playing in advance. He will port us here, but we will Witherhoard and then retreat. Actually, not retreat, but go ahead of him. So now we're well ahead. Witherhoard's just doing damage on plate 2. So this is plate 3. Spawn kill both these snipers. Then we'll do some Witherhoard. A little bit of linear. We won't hang about too much. Right, we'll do a bit of damage and then we're going. So next will be plate 4. Plate 4, I do quite a bit of damage. Actually, now I'm thinking about it. So plate 4, I spawn kill the snipers, and then this is all linear. I wouldn't recommend doing Witherhoard, because if you miss your shot, you've lost a lot of damage. Then this is plate 5. This is where all our damage comes in. I was gonna well there. The reason why I didn't is because he nearly ported me, and he's nearly dead anyways. So the well just assists with damage, I guess. I'll do a well up top and just finish off the boss, and that's how you can two-phase this boss very easily. Just need to make sure that you do the build with the high energy fire. As long as you do that, it's easy. The damage requirements are easy for this. That was the video for this, for Soul Force on the Prophecy. Hope you enjoy. Thank you.